2011 February setback was an attempt to target state institutions and replace with anarchy. The U.S. Special Envoy Tim King says that countless constant attacks on civilians block peace efforts in Yemen. While the world celebrates International Radio Day today, Houthi militia assaults on media are increasing. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Rushan Fuad. The February 11, 2011 catastrophe continues to overshadow everything in Yemen. Time has proven that it was not a mere youth uprising, but a conspiracy that targeted state institutions. Sadly, Yemen, with all its democratic and economic achievements, has fallen victim to conspiracy. The following report has more details on this.
The year 2011 was a turning point in the history of Yemen. It has seen the point when the state lost its grip on the country through a malicious movement by a score of youth who took to the streets in order to destabilize the state. The movement sent shockwaves that rippled the Yemeni present and future. The state fell. Hundreds of people moved to camps that extended throughout the country. Millions of displaced people were moved from their homes after they lost their state that provided them with care, security and safety.
We used to live in safety and security in our homes. The war came and we were moved from our homes to camps that are hit by wind and dust.
Yemenis have lost their state since the February setback, 2011. They are bemoaning the days in which they lived happily without knowing the meaning of displacement, camps and aid. The price is paid by everyone. After they remain silent about what has happened, they left the matter of choosing the rural to be a choice determined by the street, not by the ballot box.
We were happy before the year 2011. After this year, the situation got worse. May God destroy the Houthi militia and their supporters.
These simple people pay the price. Their conditions changed from living in their homes to the displacement camps. Prices went up and public money was squandered, while the state was unable to enact a policy that responds to the popular demands for justice, equal opportunities, and a decent life.
Tim King, the U.S. Special Envoy to Yemen, said the Houthi militia's repeated attacks on civilian areas and camps for displaced people is the main obstacle to peace efforts. He added that the Houthis must realize that there is no military solution to the Yemeni crisis and that the only way forward is through dialogue. King said the United States is deeply concerned about the increasing number of civilian casualties in Yemen, explaining that the protection of civilians in the region includes thousands of U.S. citizens who live in the Gulf and whose safety is a top U.S. national security priority. The Gulf Cooperation Council had the Iranian-backed Houthi militia responsible for using civilians as human shields. The Secretary General of the Gulf Cooperation Council called on the international community to exert more pressure on the militia to engage seriously without preconditions in the political process sponsored by the United Nations to resolve the Yemeni crisis. More than 90 local, regional, and international organizations have urged the United Nations to classify the Houthi militia as a terrorist group. They also called for the need to curb Houthi crimes and to dry up their sources. In a statement, the organizations attributed the request to classify the Houthi militia as a terrorist group due to the danger it poses not only on Yemenis, but also the region and the entire world. World Radio Day is celebrated by the world every February 13. The day was proclaimed in 2011 by the member states of UNESCO and was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly in 2012 as an international day. While the world is celebrating this day, media outlets in Yemen are suppressed through the practices of the Houthi rebels. More is in the following report.
As the world celebrates the World Radio Day, Yemen, on the other hand, is facing trouble with this. According to the journalist syndicate, the Houthis closed 6 radio stations in the capital Sana'a, in a move that journalists said came against the background of radio stations refusing to promote the Houthis or because they broadcast songs. It didn't only stop here, but Houthis have imposed strict social laws since seizing Sana'a in 2014. The journalist syndicate announced that it had received a report from the owner of Voice of Yemen radio stations, stating that the station was illegally closed by Houthis when security forces stormed the station. Journalists in Sana'a said the rebels wanted these radio stations to publish their songs and to incite fighting, which was rejected by some of these radio stations. According to the journalists, others were closed for broadcasting songs and music. The Yemeni Journalist Syndicate called for the speedy rebroadcasting of these radio stations and to stop all illegal measures. Since 2014, the conflict has raged in Yemen between the government forces and the rebels, who have taken control of areas including the capital Sana'a. According to the United Nations, the violence has killed over 377,000 people, and the country is in the midst of a humanitarian crisis.
On the same context, journalists in Yemen are facing huge challenges that restrict their work and even jeopardize their lives. Last week, a call was voiced by the International Federation of Journalists to put pressure on the Houthi rebels to release journalists detained in their jails. The following report has more details on this.
Media rights groups have asked Yemen's Houthi rebels to release 4 journalists convicted to death for espionage in the war-torn nation. The Houthis, backed by Iran, took over Sana'a from the internationally recognized government in 2014, igniting a civil war that has destroyed the already destitute country. In 2015, a group of 10 journalists were abducted by the Houthis during a raid in the capital Sana'a. The Houthis sentenced the journalists to death for their alleged collaboration with the Arab coalition. During a prisoner swap between the Houthis and the government in 2020, 6 journalists were released, while the remaining journalists, Abdul Khaliq Amran, Tawfiq al-Mansouri, Harith Hamid, and Akram al-Walidi, were sentenced to death on allegations of treason and espionage, a verdict that Yemen's government opposed at the time. The journalists were reportedly thrown into solitary confinement, denied life-saving medical treatment, and banned from contacting their families. The International Federation of Journalists and the Yemeni Journalist Syndicate said that the journalists' arrest was motivated by their reporting on human rights violations committed by the Houthi forces. The two groups announced they were hosting an emergency call to exert pressure on the Houthi leadership to liberate the journalists and preserve their lives. The International Federation of Journalists, which stands for the journalists and unions of over 140 countries, said the 4 captured journalists had suffered physical and psychological torture, and the denial of the right to be visited and the right to have access to medical care. Amnesty International denounced their imprisonment on trumped-up charges at the time of their trial, while the Reporters Without Borders declared the conviction totally unacceptable. Hundreds of thousands have been murdered and millions have been displaced as a result of Yemen's conflict, which the United Nations has termed the world's greatest humanitarian crisis.
Yemeni officials reported that suspected Al-Qaeda militants kidnapped 5 United Nations employees in southern Yemen. The officials said that employees were kidnapped in Abyan Governorate and were taken to an unknown location, noting that among them were 4 Yemenis and a foreigner. Tribal leaders said that they are negotiating with the kidnappers to secure their release. They added that the kidnappers demanded a ransom and release of some militants in Yemeni government prisons. Houthi militia blew up a school located in the north of the city of Hais, south of Hodeidah. Efforts of the local population managed to rehabilitate a school after it was destroyed during the war. The following report has more details.
These children are using their own hands to rehabilitate their school before they race to scramble to seek knowledge at Al-Qaqa school in the city of Hais, which was next to civilians and was destroyed due to the continuous Houthi cage. The students of Hais began to return to their school gradually. With simple efforts done to the school, the students forgot about the destruction of the infrastructure of their school.
Al-Qaqa School is an important institution in which thousands of local students have graduated from. We left this school 5 years ago due to the war, and now we have come back after liberating Hais from Houthi militia, but as you can see, the school is mere wrecks.
Al-Qaqa school in Hais is one of the evidence of life and the destruction of war at the same time. This school is one of the 9 schools that were targeted by Houthi shelling in the outskirts and center of the district, which is still awaiting governmental, international, and community efforts to recover it and normalize life in the district in general.
I was in grade 5 when I left this school because of the war. Now I am in grade 9, but the school is not the same one I know. No chairs, no equipment, nothing. I'm one of the teaching staff at Al-Qaqa school. We are back here after the liberation of Hais from Houthi militia. The school was a front line. Looking at the school now, the situation is really terrible. You can see rubbish, destruction, and even unexploded devices that could endanger students' lives.
In Hudaydah, after the liberation of all villages in the countryside of Hais, Al-Qaqa school opened its doors with the efforts of the staff and students who took the initiative to clean their school located on the seam lines, which was widely destroyed as a result of the Houthi bombing for 4 years.
Still in Hudaydah, in the west coast of Yemen, a woman was killed and her sister was wounded due to Houthi bombardment. Local sources added that the Houthi shelling targeted populated areas south of the southern districts in the governorate. Local sources said that the Houthi militia continues to displace residents from their homes in Hudaydah in order to build a separation wall. The sources stressed that the displacement is now affecting the people of Al-Matina, Al-Fazza, and Al-Nasiri, who are forced by the militia to leave their homes for the sake of the construction works of the wall, which is 40 kilometers long and more than 4 meters high. Houthi militia targeted a camp for the displaced people with artillery shelling in Maghbana district west of Taiz. Sources confirmed that 4 children and a woman were seriously injured as a result of the Houthi shelling on the camp. A United Nations team visited Rayan camps for the displaced people east of Al-Jawf Governorate. The team inspected the conditions of the displaced people and assessed their essential needs. The director of the executive unit for the displaced in Al-Jawf Governorate accompanied the UN team during the visit, in which basic needs of the people were assessed in those areas. The team responded to the essential needs of the displaced people in Rayan camps, especially food, sanitation, and access to drinking water. A report by international organizations working in Yemen stated that 73 civilians were killed by Houthi landmines during the month of January. In the same context, Massam, the mining project, said it has removed more than 5,600 Houthi mines since the beginning of February. Coming next. World Food Program says rising prices and divergent currency put extra burdens on people.
راتب الواحد 120 ألف والكيس الدقيق ب18 ألف والكيس السكر اليوم ب20 ألف. كم بعلي بيعطي هذا الراتب كامل كيس سكر وكيس دقيق؟
المواطن اليمني يعيش في أزمة إنسانية وغذائية مؤلمة من غلاء الأسعار وفحشة الأسعار وغلى الصرف والعملة الأجنبية في البلد.
حالتي الحين حالة لما أخرج لما ندفع شلقيرة ما نقدرش ناكل الأكل داخل ما إحنا بحاجة صعبة.
Welcome back. The UN World Food Programme said rising food prices have pushed Yemenis into extreme poverty. The program warned of rising poverty among Yemeni families amid continued fighting across the war-torn country. According to the statement of the program, currency depreciation and rising food prices have pushed many in Yemen into extreme poverty. As a result, hunger is rising, leaving many dependent on food assistance. Meanwhile, the UN Coordination for Humanitarian Affairs warned that 11 million people in Yemen will end up closer to starvation due to the shortage of funding for the life-saving activities in Yemen. Citizens in Aden and the neighboring governorates have been suffering from an unprecedented domestic gas crisis for more than a month now. People lined to have gas cylinders, and many of them have to go to the black market or return to wood cutting as an alternative option. To that end, the Aden Refineries Company confirmed that its role is only to receive and store oil shipments, not to sell and distribute them to the local market. For its part, the Arab Oil and Gas Organization revealed the volume of Yemen's oil and gas production. It said Shabwa Governorate was ranked first with oil production per day, accounting for 40,000 barrels, followed by Hadramaut Governorate with 30,000 barrels, and Ma'rib came in the third place with 25,000 barrels. Yemeni Riyal keeps losing its value due to the Houthis' prevention to print freshly bills. This move has worsened the economic situation in the country, which resulted in inflation and currency devaluation. More on this story is within this report.
A national currency has the same value nationwide, but in Yemen that is no longer the case. The currency has different values depending on the banknote's date of printing, its color, and design. Such a reality is one of several ordeals created by the war. Over the last 4 years, the government has printed currency that altered the look and color of the Yemeni Riyal banknote. Such a move has invited daily hurdles for civilians in Yemen, particularly after the Houthis banned the freshly printed bills. A Yemeni traveling from the south to the north needs to be ready with the Houthi-approved banknotes or a hard currency, such as the US dollar or the Saudi Riyal. With the government-printed money, nothing can be bought in Houthi-run areas. In 2016, the government relocated the operations of the Central Bank of Yemen from Sana'a to Aden, a move that worsened economic troubles, including inflation, unpaid salaries, and currency devaluation. While the UN has been trying to push the warring sides to agree to a political resolution to the conflict, the international body has also proposed initiatives, including Stockholm Agreement, to help address the economic crisis in the country. Thus far, all attempts have hit a dead end, and the UN describes Yemen as the world's largest humanitarian crisis. According to a local economist, Yemen's warring sides have miserably failed to prevent the currency's fall or agree on specific procedures to help the economy. The Houthi militia and the Yemeni government should have maintained the neutrality of the central bank. Unfortunately, they employed the financial institutions in the country to serve their purposes.
The National Committee Against Coronavirus recorded 7 new cases of the pandemic. Committee officials said that 15 recovered cases were recorded and 1 death. With the current updates, the total confirmed cases are 11,671, including 2,103 cases of death and 8,453 cases of recovery. Here is a reminder of the main headlines. The 2011 February setback was an attempt to target state institutions and replaced it with anarchy. The U.S. Special Envoy Tim King says Houthis' constant attacks on civilians block peace efforts in Yemen. While the world celebrates International Radio Day today, Houthi militia assaults on media are increasing. This is the end of the news. For more, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Yemen Today English. This is Roshan Fouad. Thank you for watching.